to me by a black theology. This must not come as a surprise because a striking feature of the radicalism associated with black consciousness is that it maintained any interest in Christianity at all and did not simply write it off as a regime might be Western or white. Black liberation theology is the affirmation of black humanity that emancipates black people from racism. This theology was coined by James Cole, but let me perhaps quote him, when he said that black liberation theology refuses to accept God who is not identified totally with the goal of the black community. If God is not for us and against white people, then he or she is a murderer, and we better kill him or he or her, with meaning God, end of quote. Based on this brief explanation, I declare that I'm a black theologian. The story of the Bible that I was referring to is contained in the book of Genesis, chapter 40, verse 1 to 23. I won't go into the details of the story, but just to share with you, is the story written in the palace. The story, just to share with you, had to do with the cupbearer and let me just try to check the details of the story because I'm on that page right now. It's the story of the cupbearer and the baker of the king. They had committed an offense. It's not explained what type of offense, but at the end of the day, they became prisoners of the state, of the king. While they were in jail, they had dreams, and they were jailed together with a certain Israelite called Joseph. And Joseph assisted both of them with their dreams. And eventually they were released from prison because of his interpretation. They went back to being the cupbearer and the baker of the king. But what I want to share with you while I read here is specifically verse 14 of that chapter. Immediately after he had assisted the cupbearer, this was not a precondition, but when he was there, he said to the cupbearer, "But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness, mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison." That's the verse that I thought I wanted to share with you on behalf of the workers that are still at the park. My interest with this story is the lack of memory and compassion of the chief cupbearer of Pharaoh. The chief cupbearer, before being assisted by his fellow community member, might call it jail or prison, but the bottom line is that it's a community of people. The chief cupbearer, before being assisted by his fellow community member, Joseph, he suffered the same ordeal as the rest of the community. Remember, prison in this time, or that time, just like in apartheid time, and even today, is meant to punish, even though we are told it is for correction. Joseph had used his spiritual gift of interpreting dreams to assist members of his community. The two members of his community were eventually released from the bondage of prison. Joseph's first interest was for a collective. However, after the release of the chief cupbearer forgot about this member of the community who had helped them. The fundamental political conflict in the story, as it has been for centuries in many human societies, has been individualism versus collectivism. This brings the question, does the individual's life belong to him or her, or does it belong to the group, the community, the society, the collective, or the state? The chief cupbearer's behavior can be explained by a statement of the metaphysics description of individualism that was provided by the former slave Frederick Douglass in a letter he wrote to his ex-master, Thomas out after escaping bondage in Maryland and fleeing to New York. When he explained the grounds of justifying himself in running away, he said, I quote, I am myself, you are yourself. We are two distinct people, equal persons. What you are, I am. You are a man, and so I am. God created both and made us separate beings. I am not by nature bound to you, or you to me. Nature does not make your existence depend upon me, or mine to depend upon yours. I cannot breathe for you, or you for me. I must breathe for myself, and you for yourself. We are a distinct persons, and are each equally provided with the faculties necessary for our existence. In leaving you, I took nothing but what belonged to me, and in no way lessened your means for obtaining an honest living. Your faculties remain yours, and mine became useful to their rightful owners. Unquote. This statement defines the cup's bearer's behavior or perception. He or she simply live for the self. The old problem of the cup bearer is that of cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. The song of Rihanna, maybe it's a little bit long, but just to share with you a few words, says, live your life, characterizes the chief cup bearer. That song says, you're gonna be shining with fancy clothes, fancy cars, and then you'll see you're gonna go far. The emphasis of the song is about the I or the me, the bottom line of this song of Rihanna. For the chief cup bearer, the I or the me defines him or her, while the me defines him, while the rest of the community matters not. But what is very strange is, for the cup bearer, use the community for the self-benefit. When in need of the help, he or she exploited the benefit of the community. For him or her to please Pharaoh or to get back into the palace, he or she relies on a collective for assistance from other members of the community. When the cup bearer wants to be recognized by Pharaoh, he or she recognizes him or herself no longer as an individual, but as a society. He sees himself or herself as a society in its unified and structural character is the fact of the case. The non-social individual is an abstraction arrived at by imagining what man or woman would be if all his or her human qualities were taken away. Society as a real whole is the normal order, and the mass as an aggregate of isolated units is the fiction. The chief cup, when it fits the chief cup bearer, he or she aligns with Maurice Law and Berkeley states, I quote, in a civilized society, man or woman has no rights except those which society permits him or her to enjoy. From the day of his or her birth until the day of his or her death, society allows him or her to enjoy certain so-called rights and deprive him or her of others. Not because society desires especially to favor or oppress the individual, but because its own preservations, welfare, and happiness are the prime considerations, and so that the society may not perish, so that it may reach a still higher plane, so that men and women may become better citizens, society permits them certain privileges, restricts them in the use of others. Sometimes in the exercise of this power, the individual is put to a great deal of inconvenience. Even at times, he or she suffers what appears to be injustices. This is to be regretted, but it is inevitable. The aim of the civilized society is to do the greatest good to the greatest number. And because the largest may derive benefits from the largest good, the individual must subordinate his or her own desires or inclinations for the benefit of all. End of quote. The cupbearer, when he or she stands to benefit in the palace of Pharaoh, defines him or herself with reference to the environing community, and in the view of John B.T. that I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am. The cupbearer, an Egyptian, recognizes himself as an African when he stands to benefit in the palace of Pharaoh. This is because accordingly, the crucial distinction does exist between the African view of a man and the view of a man found in the Western thought. In the African view, it is the community which defines the person as a person, not some isolated static quality of rationality, will, or memory. Traits of individuality and collectivism can easily be diagnosed or traced and are found in politics, religion, ideas, work, school, and all spheres of life. The problem that is always there in individualism is that the individualists want to avoid conformity and forms more on distinguishing themselves from others than on their resemblance with them. So they prefer to see themselves as unique and different from other people rather than similar to them. The individual acts on his own, making their own choices, and to what extent they interact with the rest of the collective. The chief cupbearer identifies primarily with the self, with the needs of the individual beings satisfied before those of a collective. Looks after and takes care of himself. Being self-sufficient in the world of the cupbearer, independence and self-reliance are greatly stressed and valued. In general, individualists distance themselves psychologically, religiously, politically, economically, socially, and emotionally from a collective. They may choose to join a collective, but collective membership is not essential to their identity or success. While in a collective, one's identity is in large part of a function of one's membership and role in a collective. The survival and success of a group ensures the well-being of the individual, so that by considering the needs and feelings of others, one protects oneself. Harmony and the interdependence of a collective are stressed and valued. Members of a collective are relatively close psychologically, emotionally, politically, religiously, economically, and socially. Now I'm concluding. As I conclude, now this is diverted and referred to black academics. You have suffered as blacks, you have been exploited as blacks, you have been oppressed as blacks, you have been shamed as blacks, you have been victimized as blacks, you have been poor. And actually, just to remind you, you are only 1 month bond or loan or debt away from going back into that poverty. You were part of the suffering community. The community fought for your liberation and salvation. You are now in the palace with Pharaoh. You eat whatever is provided in the palace. You benefit from whatever is given in the palace. It is in that palace where decisions are made. You sit in management of UNISA. You sit at the Senate and Senate. You sit at UNISA Council. You sit at institutional forum. You make money through articles written about the black struggle while you sit in the palace. Remember me, mention me to Pharaoh. As the workers remain dumped at the park. Thank you.